Welcome to Saturday Science with Miss Steph. I'm Miss Steph. Let's make some science fun. Today we're going to do a little something called tie-dye glue. Now, similar to last week's situation, no, this is not like something that I made up myself. Frankly, the majority of science activities that your science teacher is doing, whether it be your favorite science teacher, me, okay, or other folks, most of the time these are activities that someone else has done and created, but we throw our own little spin on it. And so that's what I'm doing, throwing my own spin on it, as well as, giving you a little additional information. All right, so hopefully some of y'all saw the preview and maybe have your materials with you. And of course, if you do not have your materials with you, you know that you'll be able to watch the replay, everybody say replay, on YT later. Okay. Now, as far as the materials, you need the following. All right. You need some food coloring. Yes, food coloring still my favorite. I mean, it's in my top 5, but this literally might be number 1. Still my favorite material. And can somebody in the comments tell me why? Somebody who's been watching me for a little while. Yeah? No? Once, twice sold. Guess what? Food coloring is my favorite because I firmly believe color, amen, makes life better. Cool. So we've got 3 colors today. You want to make sure you have at least 2 or 3 for this one. You don't really want to go over 4, and you'll see why. All right. We're calling this tie-dye glue. And I'm not going to tell you why, because I want you to see why with your very own eyes. You need some white glue. All right. Yes, this is the same bottle glue that I used earlier for the pop-up this Wednesday past. All right, to make our slime. All right. So yes, your food coloring, you need some cups. You can do this with just 1 cup if you want to, but I'm suggesting that you have 2. You need at least 1 spoon. Okay. You're going to need some water. Notice this is reduce, reuse, recycle, people. This is not bottled water. This is water I got from the tap, and I'm using this. Yes, and then I have 2 plates. They do not need to be clear plates. They do not need to be disposable plates. Why don't they need to be clear plates or disposable plates? Because we're going to use this. All right, we're going to use this. And use this, okay, to help me turn my plates to make sure I can use my plate. Okay. Need 2 to 4 food coloring. Okay, you need 1 to 2 cups. You need at least 1 spoon. You need some water. It can totally be tap water. I would definitely recommend that it be lukewarm water. You don't want it to be too hot, and you do not want it to be too cold. You'll see why later. You need glue. I'm using white glue. You can do clear glue with this, okay? But you'll see later why the white glue is just kind of easier to use. You need plates. They do not have to be disposable because you're using these 2 items. All right. Once again, it's Miss Steph. Hi, it's nice to be with you today for Saturday Science with Miss Steph. And we are hopping right into some science fun. I am going to break open. Let's tilt y'all down. Tilting. I'm going to open up my bag. Okay, my bag. Okay. Opening my bag. Cool. So I've got all these materials here. I'm going to move them to the side. The first thing I'm going to do is cut open my bag. Okay. So I am using this bag to make it easier to remove my samples from the plate later. Once again, I'm using the bag so that it's easier to remove my samples from the plate later. All right, I've got my bag cut open here and I'm laying it down like that. I'm going to put my 2 plates prepped like so to the side. Okay, I'm now going to prep my glue, right? So I prepped my plates. Now I'm preparing my glue. You see, I only have one of the cups with a spoon in it. Today's experiment, as in today's comparison, the thing that we're looking at, we're seeing this tie-dye glue activity with a watered down glue, which will be in the cup with the spoon, okay? And just straight up white glue. Once again, we're going to do 2 samples. That's why I've got 2 plates, and that's why I cut open my bag. One sample is going to just have the straight up glue. The other sample will be a diluted glue. Diluted meaning I'm adding water to it. So glad that you all made it over here to Instagram. So excited. Thank you. All right. Yeah, that'll be enough. Okay. So you see how my pour is a little thinner there? All right. So I've got my 2 samples. My 2 glue samples prepared. I've got just plain old white glue and then my glue dilution. Plain white glue, glue dilution. Now, I can set those to the side. Now let's go ahead and bring one of my plates back over. Okay. Once again, thank you so much for joining me today, ladies and gentlemen and persons. We are here making tie-dye glue. Okay, and remember, it's going to be your job at the end to make sure you drop into the comments and tell me why you think it's called tie-dye glue. Okay, so let's go ahead and do our first sample. I'm going to label this over here again. My bag, my cut open bag, lets me move my samples from the plate easier. All right, so I'm just labeling this white glue. There we go. Now I'm going to pour this down. Cool, cool, cool. Yeah, love that y'all are watching. Okay, and know that I'm going to make sure that I upload this. So if you want to watch now and do the activity later, please feel free to do that. All right, so I'm laying my glue down. Do we notice how thick this is? Do we notice how thick this is? Okay. I'm pouring my glue. Again, you could just go directly from the glue container if you wanted to. For me, it's easier to pour from the cup. So this is my first sample. I'm not doing anything just yet to it because I want to get the second sample set up. Okay, I've got it labeled. I have it on my plate. And I've got my plastic bag layer here. And you notice how later, when I want to pick it up, I'll be able to do so. This is another reason why it does not have to be a disposable plate. Okay. Remember, we're trying to manage how many materials we use. Science uses quite a few materials, but that does not mean that we have to just be reckless and abuse our environment, right? All right, so here, now this is my glue dilution. So of course, I'll label down here, glue dilution. Glue dilution. Folks, thank you for joining me, and we're making tie-dye glue for today, for those of you who are just coming in. And now let's observe, let's remark, and notice the difference between the pour of our glue dilution compared to how pouring our white glue was, right? And our glue dilution is just glue with some water. Do we notice how much easier that is to pour? Okay. Not only pour, but now move around, right? Moving around, easier to move around and kind of form. Okay. So let's put these down side by side. Okay. 2 samples. The only thing we're changing today, because we only change one thing at a time, because we are real scientists. Hello. The only thing we're changing today, right, is our glue. We have our just plain white glue, and then we have white glue with water. Now, here comes the color part, the fun part. You're going to place drops of food coloring on top of each sample. I'm going to just use one of each color. If you have a larger sample, a larger base of glue, you could use more than one of each color, but I'm just using one of each color because of the size of my base. One blue drop there. Okay. Before we move on to our next and really frankly final step, let's review what we've done. I have 2 plates and I cut open a Ziploc bag. Okay. I'm going to tilt you guys up a little bit. I took my 2 plates. I cut open a Ziploc bag so that I could turn my 2 plates into kind of a disposable plate without having to throw the plate away, and also so that I could lift my samples off later when they're dry. Cool, cool? Then I labeled my 2 things. After doing that, I made my 2 glue samples, right? I just put plain white glue in here, and then I made a glue dilution. Dilution meaning watered down. That's our science term for watering something down. You're adding water to it. You're thinning it out. Okay? Then I poured them into their respective spaces. Okay? And then I added food coloring. I've got a question asking me, can we use plastic wrap? Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Does everyone understand why plastic wrap will work? Yeah. We're really just trying to cover the plate so that you can then pick it up later. Okay. Pick up the sample later and leave the plate. All right. So now our last material that we're using, other than time, because we will need time later. The last material that we're going to use is our dish soap. Okay. Remember, I use clear. You do not have to have clear. I just use clear because I know it's not going to change the color at all. But I happen to use clear. All right, so let's tilt you back down. Do. Yay, yay, yay. Let's actually do the plain glue first. And I'm going to come over here and tilt down my friends over on Facebook, even though I know it's really choppy, guys. And I'll just have to fix that when we do the YouTube recording. Alrighty then, so let's move y'all back to make sure y'all can see. So I have my sample down. I've got these going on. Okay? Now, my soap. Remember today we're doing tie-dye glue. Tie-dye glue. I'm going to put 1 drop over the food coloring. 1 drop-ish. It's hard to just do 1 drop. 1 drop of soap over the food coloring. And then let it work. So you can see, you should be able to see a little bit how the food coloring drop now seems to be moving. Okay? Now seems to be moving. So let's put this down. And now let's go for our glue dilution. Let's see whether or not there's a difference between the reaction here with our straight up glue and now our diluted glue. All right? Wouldn't that be cool to see if there's a difference? All right, so I'm going to take 1, drop or drops. It's a little hard to manage. You could try putting some of this inside of a cup and then use Q-tips to get the drops down. And that makes it a little easier to manage. All righty then. So now you can see our movement happening, right? So do you see how much faster it is in the liquid that is not as thick, okay? Not as viscous. Viscous is or viscosity is how we measure in science the thickness of a liquid. So this is my glue dilution, okay? And this is just my white glue. And you see here, the drops are still kind of contained. Whereas here, I've got a lot of movement already. And what's really exciting about this is that now, if you can imagine, because glue can dry, right, and capture the color, you can let these sit and dry and then look at them and play with them and observe them later. Because we have the plastic on our plate, right, you'd be able to pick it up. I'm not going to pick this one up. This one is, I could now pick it up and then, of course, peel off later, right? I can peel this off later. Okay? I'm going to let this camera see it. Okay? This is my white glue sample. And this is my glue dilution sample. Right? Now, you might be wondering, well, what happens if I add more glue or more soap or more food coloring? Well, guess what? That's the part that I want you to try. I want you to try that part and then tell me what happened. Okay? Wasn't that so much fun? Well, I want to say thank you for joining me. Remember to send me an email at msstph@tfempowerment.org if you want to make a suggestion or ask a science question about what we did today. Have a wonderful day.